Everybody, and welcome back to Auto Mastery University. Today I want to talk about some expectations and some facts, and we're going to go over those with you so you can get better at what you do when it comes to incoming phone calls. Let's talk about those expectations first. Our expectation for you is that if you take 10 phone calls or 100 phone calls, that you get 90 to 95% names and numbers. So if you took 10 phone calls, that'd be 9 names and numbers, right? If you hit that, that's a pretty darn good job. Appointments, we really believe that you should get 65 to 70% appointments on an incoming phone call, especially at Certified Benz & Beamer with the way our pricing is. Most clients understand when they call us, the pricing is real right. I've done research all over the country about how dealerships price their cars, and I will tell you Certified Benz & Beamer has the most solid approach. And I've also taken phone calls at your dealership, just like you have. And what I've found is a lot of times customers will say, man, your prices are good. Price doesn't seem to be the big deal. Now, we'll talk about that later on how you deal with price on a phone call. But the chances are the reason they called is they like the price and they like the vehicle. So 70% appointments is not unrealistic. That's 7 out of 10 if you took 10 phone calls, isn't it? Realistically, probably about half of those people are going to show up. So half of 7 is what, 3.5? We'll say it's 4. Let's say 4 out of 7 people show up. And if you do the process correctly, about half of those at least are going to close. So that's 2, maybe even 3 car deals. So the reality is that's 20, 25, maybe 30% close on incoming phone calls. Now there's a couple things that have to happen. Number 1 is you need to know the phone guide and be comfortable with it and have it next to you and take notes. Another thing that has to happen is that when the call's done, you should be writing yes on your phone guide or no. If it's yes, give it to a manager, have him call, and they will indeed call and confirm your appointment. And that call will sound like this. Bob, this is Peter. I'm one of the sales managers at Certified Benz & Beamer, and I want to thank you. It looks like you made an appointment with Andy. Andy's a great guy. It looks like you're coming in for the 2013 E-Class, the black one. Great car. We'll look forward to seeing you at 5:15. And when you come in, I'll introduce myself. Good to have you here. Simple as that. It's not, are you coming in? It's a more edification call, a more welcoming call. What if you took a phone up and you didn't make the appointment? Then you'd write no on your phone guide, put it in front of the manager, and the manager would call. And that would sound like this. Bob, this is Peter. I know you talked to Andy, and it doesn't look like we helped you at Certified Benz & Beamer. How can we be of service? At that point, hopefully there's some kind of dialogue going on, and Peter can help the customer and set an appointment for you. Now that's how you get the 65 and 70% appointments on phone calls right there. Now you've got your expectations in place. Now listen to this. I want to share with you some facts that'll blow you away. How the other folks don't do phone ups, or at least don't do them right. Get this. 75% of salespeople did not ask for a name and number. That could be because maybe the car wasn't in stock. Client called in and said, hey, do you still have that 2013 E-Class? Salesperson said, nope. Customer hung up. Or salesperson didn't know what to do next. Is there any other cars? Maybe you'd ask that. Is there any other cars you're looking for? Customer said, no. Well, thanks for calling. We hung up. Let me tell you, that happens. And that's a problem. My wife is in commercial real estate. And what happens is when she gets a name, whether it's a lead, off a list, she keeps the name and number forever in her database and follows up down the road. And that's what you and I need to do. Just because we didn't sell them doesn't mean we shouldn't keep that name and number. You never know when that might be able to help you out. We'll talk about that as we move along. Now, 89% of the time, the salespeople never made an attempt to set an appointment. Can you imagine that? They never made an attempt. So the reality of that is they gave up for some reason. Always follow through with the appointment. We'll show you how. 65% of the time, the salespeople did not ask questions. And I've got to tell you, that doesn't surprise me that much because the reality is human beings aren't great at asking questions. So why do we ask questions on a phone call? To have control, to lead the client. 90% of the time, the salespeople never made an attempt to identify themselves and have the customer write down whom they should be asking for at the dealership. Have you ever had that happen when a client comes in and doesn't ask for you? You know where I'm going with that. 35% of the time, the customer went to the wrong dealership. Now, you and I get there's a lot of dealerships in the Phoenix market that like to use part of the certified Benson Beamer name, and that could be distracting. So make sure that we drive them right to our front door. And lastly, 65% of the time, the customer will shop if you quote them price. You know what? They probably already have. And that's why they picked up the phone to come see us. So we're not going to quote them any price differently than the one that is on the vehicle, that the one that's on the internet, are we? But we are going to have to probably, in some cases, justify how we do business. And we've talked about that earlier with real-time market pricing, and we'll talk about it again on later videos when we talk about objections. Hey, great job. Way to hang in there. We'll talk to you next time on Auto Mastery University.